on the way to the second market of the weekend, and there is a slight chance of rain today, so I'm really hoping that it's not going to rain, but the chance has gone down to 10 or 15% most of the day, so hopefully it's not going to be raining, but it is already like kind of muddy out. But the nice thing is that since it's muddy, they decided to move it, instead of all the booths being in the park, they're moving it to parking lots. So it's still close by to where it was going to be, it's just in the parking lots instead of in the actual park. So hopefully it's not going to be as muddy that way. That's what the goal is of moving it to the parking lot. So I'm glad that they did that. But we are almost there and we have 1 hour to set up. But I had to get some Dutch Bros on the way to help me wake up because yesterday was a long day and today's going to be another long day too. So I will show you the setup once we get there. So it is a few days after the market. I was so worn out afterwards that I didn't film this video then, and it's been raining like crazy, so it has been too loud to film, but finally the rain stopped for a few hours so I can make this video. So this market went super well. It was really fun and I sold a lot of plushies. So I have never done this market before, and so I wasn't quite sure what to expect. One of my friends said she had done it before and there was a lot of traffic, so I had hopes for it, but I didn't get my hopes up super high. So this market was interesting in that it's about Earth Day, and so how they did it is if you wanted to just advertise your business, or if you just wanted to advertise or like say hand out business cards, flyers, pins, whatever, then you could be there for free and you could have your booth for free. But if you wanted to sell anything, then you had to pay a booth fee to be there. So I of course wanted to sell my stuff, so I had to pay the booth fee, but a lot of the other vendors, I would say most of the other vendors were doing the free one where they could just give out stuff and talk about their business or their organization. And so I kind of worried that the people that were there might be there just for the free stuff and not want to buy anything, but it ended up a lot of people did shop for me, and my friend had a good point. She said, I think it actually helped that most of the people were just giving out stuff and not selling stuff, because then the customers only had a few booths to choose from of what they wanted to buy. And so I think that was true. That ended up to be true, because there were only a few vendors that you could actually purchase things from. So this was an outdoor event, and they did move us from, instead of being in the grass in the park, they moved us to the sidewalk, which was super nice because if my items fell into the mud, they would just be ruined. So I was very happy that we were not in the mud. And this event went from 12 noon till 5 p.m. So it was a 5-hour market. And included in my booth fee, I got a Earth Day t-shirt, which I don't have it with me, but I will try to put up a picture of it. And I also got a food ticket so that I could get food for free from one of the food trucks, which I think was amazing. Most markets do not do that. Actually, I think I've only been at one market where they've done that before, but I thought that was super nice that that was included in the booth fee. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put in the video of my booth before the market. This is my booth before the market. I had a pretty good stock on most of the smaller items, except for the mini chicks, and I was out of my pink axolotls. Here are my earths and heart earths, and my cats, and I had a lot of bandanas. Now, this market was a little bit windy, but not as windy as some of my recent ones were. So it was a bit windy, but we didn't put the walls up. And so with my new price tags, I was afraid they would blow away. So some of them I kind of had to put underneath something or put in the basket with the items, which I didn't love. I'm probably going to try to get some little clips to clip them on for my next market. Just because I don't want to worry about them blowing away or flipping over and people don't see the price. So I will go ahead and get into what sold. So I actually sold 2 items before the market even started, and these were to a volunteer. The market had a lot of volunteers to help the vendors find their spots and stuff like that. So this volunteer got 2 items for me, and the first one was the Heart Earth, and I made these earths and heart earths just for this market. And so I was really excited that one got purchased before the market even started, but I was also a little bit worried, like, oh no, am I going to run out? Because I had only made 2 of the heart ones. So after this purchase, I started making another one, but I didn't end up finishing it because it's not a written pattern, it's a YouTube tutorial, and I just didn't have time to be like picking up my phone and trying to fast forward the YouTube video to figure out what to do next and like talk to the customers and stuff. So I just put it down after the market started. Anyways, the second thing that she got was a small cat, and this was the tuxedo cat. And so those sold together for $30. They were both $15. And that was a great start to the day. It is always amazing when I sell something before the event even starts. So the first hour was a little bit slow, and I only sold 2 items. So the first one was a popping mushroom, and that sold for $15. I'm not sure which color this one is because I was actually walking around checking out the other vendors, and the dogs that were up for adoption, the animal shelter was there, so I wanted to go check out the dogs. And while I was gone, my boyfriend took that order, and he didn't remember what color the mushroom was. And then the second thing that I sold was my lion, and I was super excited to sell this one. So if you saw in the part 1 of this video of the 2 markets in one weekend, I was telling you that when I looked back at that event from last year, I had a few of the same items, and that lion was one of those that had been there for over a year. So I was really glad to sell that one, and it sold for $60. It was awesome. This lady was just like, oh, that's cute, and grabbed it and looked at the price tag, and I'm used to people just looking at the tag and being like, whoa, that's expensive. So that's what I was expecting. She just looked at the tag and said, I want this one. So I was super thankful for that purchase. So although I only sold 2 things within the first hour because I had sold some things before the market started, I was already at $105 just within the first hour. Okay, so now we're at 1 p.m. and I sold quite a few things between 1 and 2. So the first thing I sold was one of my earths, and it sold for $10. Then I sold one of my pins, and I think it was the frog one, but I'm not certain on that. And that one sold for $2. And then a family came, and the mom purchased 2 items for both of her kids, which was amazing. They were looking at stuff, and the daughter said, can I have 2? And the mom was just like, sure. So I was kind of surprised by that because most people are like, you can only get 1. So I was super happy that they bought 2 for both of their kids. So they both got a keychain. So the girl got a flower keychain, and this was a blue and white one. And then the son got a whale keychain, and then he also got a medium loaf cat. Now I didn't write down which color this one was, so I might have to look back at the video of before and after the market to figure out which one it was. And then the girl got my dog Mermaid, which I was super excited to sell. That was another one that I have had for over a year, and people talk about it all the time at markets. Everyone points it out, but I just hadn't sold it yet. So I was really glad that that one found a home. So for all 4 of those items, it was $112, which was amazing. Like, just a purchase from one person made just about the same amount that I've been making at a lot of my markets recently for the entire market. So that was super amazing to sell that much in one purchase. So I think one of the keychains was 10, one was 12. The mermaid dog was 60, and then the loaf cat was 30. And then I made one more sale in that hour, and it was another one of my pins, and this was a spider pin, and that sold for $2. So now we are at 2 p.m. and our total is $231, which is super good for 2 hours. So I sold quite a few more things in this hour. The first thing I sold was a chick, and it was $12, and I believe this was the light yellow one. Next, I sold another pop mushroom, and this was an orange one. I'm not sure why, but it says $18, so either they got a pin with it, because it should be 15. Either they got a pin with it, or I just accidentally wrote 18 instead of 15. Next, I sold my medium squid, and this is a blue and green one. And I was excited to sell this because this is the first medium one that I have put out at a market, and this is only the second market that I have put it out at, so I was really glad to see that one go. And that same person also got a small cat, and it was the white one with gray variegated spots. So those sold together for $45, the squid was $30, and the cat was $15. Then I sold one of my corn, and this was one that was with the variegated green husk, and that sold for $20. And I sold one more thing in this hour, and it was an axolotl, and it was the purple speckled one, and that sold for $20. So now we're at 3 p.m. and our total is $346. Super happy about that. And then from 3 to 4 was the hour that I sold the most items. But the crazy thing about that is that I actually only sold these items from 3 to 3:30, and then from 3:30 to 4 I didn't sell anything. So although I sold the most things in this hour, I actually sold them all in 30 minutes, which is kind of crazy. The first thing that I sold in this hour was a yellow chick, and it sold for $20. Then I sold a orange laying dino. So this is one of my medium-sized dinosaurs, and it sold for $35. And then I sold another pin, and this was the frog pin, and it sold for $2. Next, I sold another pop mushroom, and this was a blue variegated one, and that sold for $15. Next, I sold one of my large dinos, which these were super popular for me last year, and this year they have just not sold hardly at all. So I was glad to sell one of those. This was the blue one with embroidered eyes, and it sold for $40. Next, I sold a rainbow variegated bee, and it sold for $15, which I realized I probably shouldn't have put this one out at this market because my next market is a pride market, and I was kind of planning on saving the rainbow stuff for that market specifically. So I only have 2 more of those left, and I have a custom order to make in rainbow, so I'm not sure if I have enough to make another bee for my pride market. And the rainbow yarn that I use, it costs, well, I used to get it at Joann and it was cheaper, but now that I can't get it at Joann, I had to get it on Amazon, and it was almost $15, and that's with the free shipping on Amazon. So that was crazy. So I tried to kind of make smaller items to spread out that rainbow yarn, so that I can make multiple things for my next market and not have to buy another skein of it. And then I sold another axolotl, and this one was a tan and blue variegated one, and it sold for $20. And then I sold a sticker for $3, and at this point I had to go to the restroom. So I went to the restroom, and my friend sold this one for me, and she wasn't sure which sticker it was, which is okay. I only have 2 stickers anyway, so it was either the dog or the axolotl. And at this point we are at 3:30/4 because I didn't sell anything between 3:30 and 4. So at that point we are at I can't read it exactly, but I think it says $486 is where we're at. And so now we are on to the last hour. Now, it did slow down in the last hour, and I think about exactly an hour before the end of the market, someone in charge came up and said, since it's slowing down, you guys can leave if you want. And I didn't really like that because I want to stay there all the way until the end and make all the sales that I can. And they told everyone that they could leave early. Well, it wasn't really that slow, so I don't know why they said that. And then a bunch of other people started packing up, and then the customers that were there assumed that the market was over and started to leave instead of finish shopping. So I didn't love that, but I did still sell a few more items in the last hour. And then we tried to stay pretty long, but we were pretty much like one of the last ones there because everybody else already packed up and left. And so we were one of the last ones, but I want to say we started packing up maybe 15 minutes early, 20 minutes maybe, before it was supposed to end. So the first thing I sold in the last hour was another earth, and it sold for $10. And then I sold another axolotl, and it was a purple one with embroidered eyes, and that sold for 20. And I was surprised to sell so many axolotls at this event because, like I said in my last video, I ran out of pink yarn and I sold both of my pink ones at my last market, and so I didn't have any pink ones for this market, so I was kind of surprised to sell so many of those. And then I sold another one of my spider pins, and that same person also got an earth, so that was $12. The pin was $2 and the earth was $10. And then I sold another bandana, which was pink, white, and blue, and that sold for $25. I was glad to sell a few bandanas today because I forgot to tell you, but at the last market the day before, when I went through everything to find the bandanas, I realized I made a ton of bandanas and I had quite a few left over from last year. So the bandanas that I have out in the video, that is only like half of the bandanas that I have finished, which is crazy. I just really like making them, so I made a ton of them. So I'm hoping to sell quite a few at my spring and summer markets, but I'm also thinking I might put some of them for sale on my Etsy. So let me know in the comments if you would be interested in a bandana if I put it on Etsy. Next, I sold another small cat, and this was a pink and yellow one, and it sold for $15. I was a little surprised by how many of the small cats I sold. So the day before I was thinking, wow, I might have made too many small cats. There was so many of them, but I sold quite a few of them, and now I even need to make a few more. So I was kind of surprised by how many of those I sold in this weekend. And then the last thing that I sold at this market was another axolotl, and it was a purple speckled one for $20. And this one I had already packed up like half of my stuff, and I think it was one of the other vendors' kids came running over and was like, "Can I still get this?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." So I think that one was a vendor that got that one. So I'm not sure if I don't think I mentioned in the beginning how much the booth fee was. So the booth fee was like $50, but because of the fees from the website that I had to pay on, it was like $53. And I think that was very reasonable for getting a t-shirt for free with it and for getting a meal ticket with it. I think that was super reasonable. And so I am certainly going to try to go to this market next year. It was definitely fun and I really enjoyed it and it did well. So I definitely want to try to do this one next year. So the total that I made for this market was $598, which means if you subtract the booth fee, that means I profited almost $550 from this market, which is really good. I'm super excited about that because I have been a little down because my markets this year have not been great so far. So I'm really glad that this one was good and it's giving me some motivation to keep going. It's just been kind of strange this year. I don't know if people are just not going out as much because there hasn't been as much traffic as usual at most of the events that I've done. And a lot of the people that are there weren't really buying anything. They were just kind of there to look, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just interesting to see that like the majority were doing that, where sometimes, you would see almost everybody bought at least something from the market. So this is by far my best market of the year so far, and I really enjoyed it. And the next market that I'm doing, which is less than a week away, is the Pride Market. And this, I believe it might be run by the same people as this one. And I did do the Pride one last year and it went super well. So I do expect it to go pretty well. I do expect there to be quite a few other crochet vendors at that one. So we'll see how that goes, but I do have quite a few Pride items and I have Pride bandanas and plushies. So hopefully I will do pretty well at that one. So I will go ahead and put in the video of my booth after the market. Now, it doesn't look like a lot of things are missing, but that is because once I sold quite a few of the larger items, we went to my inventory that was in the totes underneath and pulled out some more items to put up. So although it may not look empty, it's just different things in the place where the ones that sold were. So this is my booth after the market, and as you can tell, it got a lot windier by the end of the market, and with these new tablecloths, they were trying to flip up and stuff was falling over, so you can see some of the things are knocked over. Well, that is pretty much the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and make sure you're subscribed so you can see my next video. I'm definitely going to be posting about my next market. I'm also going to do a video about patterns that I would recommend for Pride Month. And I've got so many more videos that are in the works right now. So if you want to make sure you see those, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification. And if you've watched all the way to the end, please go leave a heart in the comment section so I know that you watched all the way to the end. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day. See you next time.